Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to an anime story podcast. It's the 15th of September, 2018.
Ladies and gentlemen. Welcome
Gotta
to
kill
an
the
anime
sound
story.
Hi, how's everybody doing today? Hey, Mandy, how are you doing today? My name is Jake. I'm one of your hosts. Right over here on the right is Mandy. She's one of your hosts too. Hi, Mandy, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
And then just below me is Noah. Noah, how are you doing today?
Good.
Hey, Susie. Oh, that was... Oh, dear. But yes, welcome. So today on an anime story, we are going to be discussing Your Lie in April, which is an anime series. It is one season, 22 episodes, and confessions, I did not get all the way through it. I had a lot of stuff happen this week. Excuse. But I got about halfway through it.
Mandy got through it.
Oh yes,
right?
at least Mandy got through it.
I told
Ooh.
you I didn't.
Yeah,
I got to 14.
we got about. I think I got through 13.
Halfway.
So unfortunately,
I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that I'm the only one who did my job.
Noah got through it. Well, thank you, Noah, for
Thank you,
being
Noah.
professional here. It was we appreciate it, but we can still discuss what we have seen. I have a lot of stuff that I'd like to discuss about it. There's some interesting stuff in there, artistically, narratively. Mandy, what do you think? Did you like it?
I did. I really liked it. I loved the use of emotion, the way that it captured the feeling of being downtrodden and lifting yourself back up, and just having that persistent character that pushes you that hard. That's all.
Yes, no, that
I
is.
was looking for something, so
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of that. Interesting themes of that. A lot of themes. Well, I think. Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. No, what did you think? Did you like it?
I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. I think a major theme, and one that is actually explicitly stated in the show, is the idea of how people are changed by the relationships they have with others, or by knowing other people.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's true. That is kind of a major theme in the story, because everybody. I mean, and there's I think what is it? I think several of the characters even have this so far as making major life-changing events happen for them just by seeing somebody perform. Just by having witnessed them do stuff. That's fascinating, because that I think certainly can be a really interesting, influential thing in people's lives. Weird subject to tackle in the way that they were doing it. With 14-year-old musicians.
It's weird, that music.
That's true. Yeah. No. So this was an interesting thing. Noah was wondering about. Noah, you go ahead. Tell me. Let's talk about the music. The actual sound music.
Is that how people respond to piano music? Mandy, you disagree with me on this. You like it. Okay. And it's not necessarily even that I disagree with your viewpoint, it's just that I don't get it. Like, I don't understand the emotional reaction to music without lyrics, especially. Because we get some, I wrote down some of the comments that people made, right?
Right.
And some of the comments in the show from the audience are, such a rich tone from one so young, like a whispered word or loving touch. It's sparkling with colors I can't even name. Is that the response people have when someone plays, music on the piano differently?
So okay.
And how do they play it differently?
I actually have a lot to say to this specific thing. It's kind of my experience, in my opinion, that different people react to different types of artistic things in different ways. Some people are more susceptible to certain kinds of emotionally impactful things than other people. So some people really, really love horror movies, and they get scared and they get freaked out and they enjoy it. Some people watch horror movies and they go, I don't get it. It's not scary. Some people really get into sad things and it just hurts them and they love it. And that's the kind of thing that they really get into. We actually had a conversation a long time ago about one of a couple of different things that happen often in anime about and I think it was something I don't understand, something that doesn't really affect me, is like the super powerful character that enters in, or the character that does something really incredible, and everybody's like, "Whoa, that's amazing!" And then the other characters are wowed, and you were saying that sometimes that kind of gets you, and I just like it doesn't register for me at all.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was wrong.
No. I did not say that gets me.
Okay.
I was saying no. That is a tool which I often feel is overused in storytelling.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
It's something that can work, but it's also, if it's overused, it ends up feeling like a cheap trick used by bad writers. That is, putting a character in a position where everyone is very impressed with them, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the viewer is like, I'm imagining myself as that character. Gosh, it's so cool that everyone's so impressed with that character that I'm imagining myself as.
Right.
And there are some anime, and in fact, this is universal thing. This happens in all kinds of storytelling, not just anime. They will do that again and again. The writer will repeatedly put the character in a situation where everyone can be wowed and impressed by them.
Right.
And it ends up feeling cheap and valueless and like bad writing, because they can repeatedly throw at the viewer like, look how cool this character is in this new position where they're a badass and nothing stops them.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we were having the conversation about how that's a thing that I don't get, and you were talking about how I know some people have an emotional reaction to that, or have just kind of it's weird to say an emotional reaction, but some kind of emotional reaction to that. In the same way that a character. Go ahead.
I think that a lot of people, myself included, like seeing a character and the character does something badass and being like, that guy's a badass, right? That character's super cool. Look how cool they are. Like, that is something that happens in this show. Like, the characters will play some musical stuff, and all the audience will be wowed and impressed by them. And it is a thing that happens, and it can be very nice to see that, especially if it comes at the end of a big story arc with the character, where the character has been working towards this, and then you see them accomplish it at the end.
Oh yeah, so it's a thing where it's a device, it's a story device, and it can be used, and it can be used effectively. It can be misused, like jump scares. Very few filmmakers know how to use jump scares, but they can be used really well. And so it's just a thing that if you abuse it, then it kind of feels flat, feels bad. But so getting back to, I think, what was the original thing I was talking about? Some device they were using. Oh yeah,
people react differently to.
So, and this is the thing. I think some people are affected by certain types of things, certain types of story devices, in different ways. Some people go for the really sad things. Some people don't really it's a character. It's not really sad. They're just, and they don't really do that. Some people love the horror thing. Some people, get into in the last minute, some hero coming in and swooping in and saving the day, and that gives a lot of people a very emotional reaction. And so some people, I think, respond really well to music. Some people, yeah, exactly. Lyrics. Some people can read poetry and just bawl.
I would like then to narrow down my point.
Okay.
To cut to the core. Yes, Mandy, you go first.
Okay. My point is, I have been moved by music like this, or by art, and I don't think it's just some people. And I agree with you, Jake. It's preference based, but at the same time, I think that if anyone goes into a inspirational play or performance or whatever, and that person's giving their heart and soul, and you can feel it, there's a big difference there.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like that's the connection. That's like it's inspiring, it's empowering, it pushes you to push yourself to your very best. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That's good, because that's what I want to like cut to the
Yeah.
core of. What is it that causes the audience to feel it? What
Mhm.
is it that multiple people in the show, for example,
Mhm.
multiple people can play the same song, and then the audience will say, it's different this time. There's a richer tone. It's more sad. Is the character playing at a different pace? Are they hitting the keys at a different amount? Are they holding them down longer in some
Okay,
instances?
so that's an interesting thing. I actually don't know if the literal music in the show is any different. It might just be characters talking. But Mandy, maybe you did notice something.
Well, no, I was gonna say. So
Mhm.
why, when you watch some episodes of live action TV, do you believe some people on TV and some people you're like, whatever, like their character is stupid. What are they doing? Why do you believe them and you don't believe other characters? It's
So,
because they're not invested. It's the
so
investment that you're putting into it.
I I see your point. I would, however, disagree. And my disagreeing, first I will state the piano does not seem like as subtle an instrument as others. And I know this is like it's probably got lots of subtlety to it. Like you can hold the keys down for different periods, maybe you tap them at different strengths, maybe you
Mhm.
move at different speeds, but it seems less subtle than like a violin. And when a character is lying and when I would why I would believe one character over another is going to go down to the incredibly intricate, like facial expressions, posture, gestures, tone of voice, all of those subtle details.
Yes, those are subtle details, but there's a difference. You can tell when somebody's mimicking it or they're actually doing it.
Not
Doing it
always,
is
though.
cool. Yes,
Not always.
that's
And
true.
people,
I agree with you. People can fake it, but you have more of an investment in someone, I feel like, when they actually are doing it.
So no, as far as like the actual music in the show, I mean, I'm not a musician, so I couldn't like tell you if there was any actual difference in it.
I
Um,
assume that there's no actual difference in the music
yeah,
in the show
I
because they don't
mhm.
really need to.
No,
And
yeah,
like, what are they gonna do? Go and find like
right,
super the best
yeah,
pianist in the world so that they can represent the best pianists in their
right.
show with that? No,
No,
that's ridiculous.
I definitely agree though that you that there is a level of subtlety, and I mean, I think any instrument, um, certainly the piano, that it's hard. It's kind of maybe hard to quantify. Um, it's one of those things. Like, what makes that it's such an abstract thing. What makes a good violin player? Like, I don't know. What makes a good piece of artwork? What makes a good painting? Like,
The
there's a
thing that
weird abstract subtlety in it.
the thing that specifically gets to me is that I just don't get it is
That's
that
fair.
they're playing the same piece of music
Hmm.
and people are getting a different reaction to it. So I'm wondering, how are they playing it differently? Because they're doing something differently if they're getting a different reaction.
That's fair. I feel like within the realms of the narrative, that is just kind of something you have to say okay to. There's not really a way to, like, express to the audience the like weird subtle difference in the way people are playing things. That's, I think, one of the reasons that why there's so much narration is that they can't create this incredible subtle difference and make the audience pick it up and make it clear to them kind of what it is. They have to have everybody narrated in their head as these scenes are happening, so you go, okay, yeah, so that person, he's playing it in a totally different way. It's the same song, but he's playing it in a crazy like way that touches people. So it's kind of, I feel like that's a story point that you kind of just have to say, okay, yeah, they're playing it differently. That's not going to shine through. It's an anime. It's they're not actually master musicians. They're voice actors and artists, and they probably got someone to play some of the scores. So, it's just a story point you have to kind of concede to the writers and the animators. But I totally know what you're saying.
What? What's that like?
Oh,
They did do the trope of everyone falls in love with the protag.
that's. Did they? Because, well, actually, I don't know. I mean, halfway through the series again.
2, 3. Are there more than 3?
I think a lot of it comes down to, like, it touches on the audience's basic communicative instincts. So being able to really, really just understand it from a primal level, and the way that they heighten the stakes in the fact that we find out, spoiler, that she's sick.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out a lot of things along the way that just make it more touching and more gut-wrenching.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that they did it the way they did, especially with the mom, because you really hate her in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really just was like, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's a little, for me, it was more of like, maybe there was less of the hate than we think. We don't really know. And so, I mean, we saw her hit him once, really bad.
I would say we saw her in one instance of her hitting him.
We know that she hit him hard enough to make him bleed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that she was beating him during his piano lessons.
And that she was making him.
We didn't see all of that, though.
Well, there was a lot of it was implied. There was a lot of implication.
Bunch of bruises on his arms. I have to go back to my piano lessons, Mom.
Which is really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were people. There was definitely a lot of
that too, and forgiving yourself.
So okay.
You can still love something.
Here's an interesting thing. I think this is a fascinating subject that I want to talk about. Is the mother and abuse and that character. Because I mean, I think the protagonist, the main character's primary kind of thing that he's dealing with in the story is dealing with his own abuse. Because that's his whole shtick. He's been so abused that he can't even hear the music that he plays anymore. And that's one of his major struggles. His mother, beats him and is obsessed about this. And there's some interesting things where, at least in the middle kind of part of the story, they're talking about her like, oh, well, she wasn't that bad. She just wanted you to be better. And first of all, I don't like the messaging. I don't like the, oh, yeah, she beat him and abused him, but she did it to make him better. Like,
I will say,
I don't like that. I really don't like that.
I will say, I think that they didn't focus enough on like how kind of horrifying her behavior was before reaching the kind of redemption arc. The part where he's like, because the protagonist never reaches a point in the story where he feels that she is in the wrong. We get flashbacks to when he was a little kid and when he got upset with her when he was a little kid, and he yelled at her and told her he wished she would just die. But like the protag in the current time of the story is completely like, if I had done better, maybe I thought if I did better, she wouldn't die. I feel like he's blaming himself a bit, and he's not at all blaming his mother. And then Saito comes in, who's the piano teacher, who was a friend of his mother, and she's kind of like, she's not really.
She was just trying to help you out. She did it in a bad way, but she was just trying to help.
Well, it comes down to that victim mentality too. Like, he takes responsibility in the sense that he doesn't want to blame her for that. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because the blame, he shouldn't blame himself either.
No, yeah.
I mean, that's self-saboteur.
It's
That's not great.
I think it's an interesting thing that they have done. I think, and again, halfway through the series, I apologize, but it's that kind of abusive relationship is a really complicated thing. It's complicated on the kid's part. It's complicated on the mother's part. I'm sure she has problems. And you probably, if you really get into her, you probably can't necessarily blame her for. I mean, that sounds really that. Those kind of relationships are really complicated. Because she shouldn't period, she was abusive to him, like supremely abusive to him, and his entire arc in the story is trying to get over that, you know, and be free from this mental anguish, this thing that's kind of got him locked up, metaphorically, like at the bottom of the ocean, and you know, so but it's a complicated relationship. They did a pretty good job of bringing a lot of that across with respect to like how it affected him. I just think that they kind of the way that they have dealt with it, you know, in the mid story, feels like they're not acknowledging how wrong she was. They're trying to say, oh well, she didn't mean it. She wasn't that bad. And,
I would say the issue that I have with it is I think two things. I feel that they didn't emphasize enough, like they didn't give the character, they didn't give Kosei Arima, they didn't give the protagonist enough internal conflict over what happened, right? They didn't make it an issue because it is a confusing issue. It's like, I love this person, but they're abusing me. That's a complex issue that should be confusing.
Yeah.
But the protagonist was never confused or uncertain about they never had that reaction. So we didn't get that. And then they kind of I just think I think the internal conflict for the protagonist wasn't there, and it needed to be.
I agree 100% with what you're saying there. I think that the one of the fundamental aspects of that relationship that they really missed, or that they mostly missed, is his frustration with her, or God, I'm trying to think of a better way to say that. There's a fundamental part of that relationship that I think is mostly absent, that makes it feel like she is only the bad guy, and we just kind of see her as the bad guy, and we don't get a lot of stuff that makes us feel bad for her for whatever she's going through, and you don't add that kind of sympathetic aspect to her character that makes us feel bad for her, because ultimately that confusion is going to come from him being it's his mother, and he loves her, and you know she's a caretaker, and you know we have to be able to feel that in order to be like, well, but she's also abusing him, but like you have to have some good stuff with it, you have to feel like she is at least kind of a good person.
Well, and I think that's where when it came in. Huh?
Or go ahead. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's where it came in. So when you're watching the episodes later on down the line, when he starts kind of freeing himself from all of that, we start to actually see more of her face. We start to see less of this maniacal, evil thing, and it becomes a real person.
Thought that was great, by the way.
Yeah.
The no eyes.
And so that was interesting, and I really appreciated that part of it. Noah had something to say. I'll let you go.
We see a mirror of that with Kaori. Kaori, as her health deteriorates, we get a shot of her where her eyes aren't visible to mirror Arima's mother, and Kaori starts having issues where she's snapping at Arima, and she's doing thing Arima's mother was doing, and so I do think that we get some conflict between Arima and Kaori that is in that same, that perhaps that's where they wanted to do it.
And so you see now, I just like I feel so bad because I can't. Like I don't have the whole picture. I've got like 60% of the picture. And that other 40%, that's probably pretty important. So
Probably.
It's okay, Jake. Mandy didn't see it either.
I will tonight.
between the two of us, we watched all the episodes.
We could just split it up. You could take half. I could take the other half.
Mhm.
I have a topic.
Okay, real quick
Judge
before
it.
can I just real quick before you do that, just to quickly touch on abusive behavior. Abuse is bad. Don't abuse people if you're being abused. Call somebody, get help. Domestic violence is bad, and this was a really upsetting. There are a lot of really upsetting things in the show because of that. Because that can be a really rough dynamic.
Because it's also a very, very common thing with
Yeah.
domestic violence to have a, but they loved me.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that doesn't make it right.
yeah,
No.
but when you're a kid going through that,
It's
you
true.
don't know that.
If you see
You don't
something,
know.
if you see something, call somebody.
And the thing is, too, about abuse is when you've gone through the motions of it, you tend to fall into a habit of going back to abuse and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so you kind of put yourself in that mode. And it sucks because it's hard to break free of that and you don't know why it keeps happening to you. And it's not why, it's literally your behavior, but you don't know how to break the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, seeking help, getting somebody who can really talk you through it, because it's not about putting blame on the other person. There's so much shit that goes wrong in this world that it just doesn't matter. Like, we try our best and we do our best, but definitely seek help, because there are good people out there who want you to succeed. So there's no reason to start abuse. So don't
No.
abuse other people, and don't let the cycle end. Let it end with you.
Yep. Tell a teacher, call a hotline, do something. But
Do something about it. Yeah.
I'm sorry for that interruption, Noah. Please continue.
The judges. What
judges.
do you guys think of the two judges?
Were there only two? I thought there were three. Because there's the snooty guy, and there's the freer guy who was one of the teachers, and then there's the snobby foundation guy, who was like, "This is a place to music and not a place to wring out your dirty laundry," or something like that.
Well, no, he said this is a garden for music, not a place where you find yourself, which I thought was really shitty. But
Yeah.
sorry, I keep
Thoughts
messing
on the
up that.
judges. How do you feel about the judges and their presence in the story and the overarching narrative?
Well, so it's interesting. I mean, honestly, most of their interaction takes place through narration, which is, that was an interesting thing in general. Because again, most of the scenes that are quote unquote action scenes are just someone playing an instrument while people narrate what's going on. So I don't know. They're interesting characters.
I kind of think that the reason there are two judges is so that they can have a judge who represents everyone who disagrees with the way the protagonist and Kaori play music and put emotion into it, and the judge who is open in accepting of that viewpoint to represent I kind of think that there are two judges to represent two differing viewpoints of the main character's
Stark.
viewpoint of emotion, and then everyone who disagrees with them. And so I kind of don't like the judge who disagrees with him, because I kind of think it's not that I dislike him as a character,
Right.
but it's I don't dislike him as a person, right? I'm not like, that guy's an asshole. Granted, he is an asshole, but I dislike him as a written character because I feel like his existence is only there to be disliked by the audience, to be like, I am an antagonistic force, and that I will sit here and I will criticize the people that the audience are cheering for.
That's not necessarily true.
Go.
Okay. So, I feel like his existence is also there to challenge you to be better. So, like, he challenges the protagonist to be a better person, be his best self. Just because he says those things doesn't mean he's not good enough. And they all know it. And so his character doesn't just exist to be somebody you hate. I think he actually is there to push the character further than even the character knows he can go.
Mm-hmm.
But he only has one interaction with the protagonist, and
Right.
that is
But he's
him.
there for a lot of it. He makes those like snotty looks and stuff like that. You know, I don't think he's necessarily a bad guy.
No, he's okay. So I think he is it's an interesting character. Both of them are interesting characters to have. They're I mean they're kind of honestly narrators, and I don't mean in the sense that most of their dialogue is narration. I mean in the sense that they're kind of narrators. They don't really serve much of a purpose. They're not really antagonists. They're not really characters that help anybody along. They don't really I don't really perceive them as pushing anybody in any directions. They just kind of sit there and narrate what's happening, and whether or not they have a negative opinion. I mean, their negative opinions or their positive opinions might affect the characters and how they think about it, but they don't really seem to be pushing the characters in a direction. They're kind of just like narrators. They're kind of like, oh, this character's doing this. Oh, that character's doing that.
I would say protagonist Arima,
Mm-hmm.
specifically at the end in the last episode or second to last episode or something.
Yeah, I know.
like
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Uh-huh. He notices that there are people in the audience in that episode, as if he's becoming aware of his friends in the audience for the first time, implying that he didn't pay attention to the audience before, which would mean he wouldn't be seeing those snooty looks. I kind of think the two judges are just there to represent the people who support Arima and the people who don't support Arima, as well as Kaori.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not convinced that either of them pushes anyone forward,
Mm-hmm.
and I almost feel like they could be written out of the story.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
but
Or
they're there for a reason.
Are they?
okay?
Like,
Okay, there's an interesting question. What's the reason, Mandy, that you think that they're there in the story?
Well, I mean, whenever a writer writes something, whenever you
Mhm.
approach a play or a book or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
you have to come with the assumption that they're there for a reason. Otherwise, why have them?
Right.
So you can't. So how do I word this? It's not that they could be written out. They couldn't be written out, but they wanted them there for a reason.
Right. Okay.
So I don't necessarily know what that reason is.
I would say I agree with the idea of characters being there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
What my argument is that their reason is to simply serve as the voicing the support or disagreement of for Arima and Kaori, and maybe representing the audience's viewpoints a little bit.
Right.
But I'm saying that I don't think they serve enough of a function in the story, and I think that if they were to be written out, if they were to be removed, it wouldn't necessarily be for the detriment of the story, because I don't think
I
that
agree
they
with that.
are
Yeah.
helpful enough characters to the narrative.
So no, yeah.
And there's their backstory, and they don't really have one. So it might be that they're just not strong enough. They're not heightened enough in the story to even serve the story moving forward.
Maybe if there's a manga, they interact more, they show up more.
Yeah.
But they don't really do much other than narrate to the audience in the anime.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting, yeah, because someone in the comments is mentioning that they are kind of there to represent kind of the old classical view of music, and I did a little bit of music, and I know enough about it that is very true. That like the way they think about it, I think is probably that's also the way that a lot of people think of writing. It's like this is the proper way to do it, and like you were saying, Noah, they're there to kind of narrate. Well, how did you say it again?
They narrate to the audience. I don't know. Narrate
yeah.
the something.
Narrate to something. So they're there to kind of narrate to the audience. Reflect the audience. Reflect the world's classical views on music, or the general classical view on music, regardless of how prevalent that actually is to the story. They do kind of do that, and yes, I think that obviously in a good story. Now, I think this is also a mistake that is made sometimes. Everything in the story is there for a reason. Every character in the story is there for a reason, if the writers were paying attention. That's not always the case, though. I think those characters are there for a reason. I think perhaps they could have served more of a function than they did, because they did, I think, serve as kind of a voice for the audience, kind of a voice for what society is supposed to think, or so musical society is kind of supposed to be, with contrast to what the characters are doing and being free, like music hippies or whatever they called them. So they're there to serve a purpose, but maybe it was it was an underutilized role. They certainly could have, and I do think they could have completely written the characters out and still gotten the same thing, maybe through more passive, they
do have
anonymous judges.
They do have random audience members.
And random audience members.
A lot of dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of narrative. I would like to propose the next thing we discuss and just leave it to you guys.
All right.
What do you guys think of the symbolism and the metaphors and such of the protagonist Arima being at the bottom of the ocean and suffocating, and then we have multiple shots in the intro of characters like Arima and Kaori standing on top of the ocean,
or reflecting knee-deep.
The vast blue sky above.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and then I think in the first arc, interesting topic. Thank you, Noah. In the first arc intro, they are at some point standing in water up to their knees. And then in the second part, a lot of them are standing on top of the water. I don't know if there's supposed to be significance in there. There's kind of an obvious significance in there that you could, project onto it. Overall, I didn't actually think the intros were very good. But as far as the metaphor, and I say that in a delicate way, I didn't hate them, but I just didn't think they were stupendous. The bottom of the ocean thing. Interesting. Maddie, I'm curious about what your thoughts are on that.
The symbolism for me was very feeling trapped in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way to get above water.
Mm-hmm.
We've all felt like that in life, where you can't get out from under it. And then just looking up and seeing the light, and that there's something more if you just look around. So just embracing different points of view, and really knowing that it doesn't have to be so dark, that there's always a way out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the muffling of sound along with the bottom of the ocean thing was really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that worked relatively well, and the whole, obviously being at the bottom of the ocean and the crushing, darkness and can't breathe and that thing, that obviously works for a person trapped in an emotional kind of prison of being smothered by that.
Protag also never recovers his ability to hear his own music.
I was wondering if that was going to happen.
It's never explicitly stated that he's recovered his ability to hear music, and it's never really implied that he does.
Hey.
But he does do a performance at the end during which we get to see him playing the piano on top of the ocean, reflecting the vast blue sky above. And we do also get, he says a lot in the first few episodes. He
Mhm.
repeats himself a few times, saying
Yes.
that Kaori is freedom, which is also the sky is freedom, and the ocean surface reflects the sky, and he's sitting on the ocean surface playing his piano.
That's interesting. So, yes, doesn't, I don't know if he can, probably can't. Takes a lot of years for those injuries to heal, I would imagine. So maybe he's got a few more years before he can hear
Injuries of
music
the
again.
mind.
Injuries of the mind. Yes. Interesting. No, yeah. Actually, you said something I also did want to touch on about repetitiveness.
Repetition.
Lots of repetition. But so yeah, I was wondering if if ever he was going to recover his being able to hear music or being able to hear his own playing. But
but I like the way that the piano teacher tells him that that's a gift, not a curse.
that he can't hear his music.
Mm-hmm.
She says it gives. I'm going to alter what she said a little bit.
Okay.
And say that this is a different interpretation of what she said.
Okay.
And you can trust me or not. And I can decide later on whether or not I agree with what I'm saying now. But I would say that more or less she says, you have a different perspective now that will help you.
That's fair. This is actually, again, this goes back to kind of what we were talking about. And, yeah, like you have this problem, but it gives you perspective.
Also, sorry, so I'm going to interrupt you right here.
Please.
But, like, someone who plays the piano who can't hear music, and they hear the music in their head, though, because they imagine it.
Uh-huh.
I'm seeing connections here.
Muscle memory.
Couple connections, one or two. with historical figures.
Historical figures.
Yeah. Yes. No. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's the obviously Beethoven. For anybody who doesn't know, apparently was deaf.
But he said he heard it in his head.
Yes.
And Saito was like, imagine it.
You can feel the vibrations. The vibrations are at a different.
I think that was the thing they said in the show that Beethoven like put a broom on the piano or something so he could feel the vibrations or something. That was I've never heard that before. But yeah, no, interesting. Yeah, it's obvious how they're trying to paint that character. Totally fair. Totally reasonable story device.
May I draw attention to another thing, to another element of the story?
Was it the repetitiveness?
It's not the repetitiveness. We can go into the repetitiveness if you'd like to discuss.
You do yours and I'll do mine.
Everyone in the story, almost everyone in the story at one point in time or another asks the question rhetorically to themselves, did I reach them?
Oh, like, okay, interesting. I have to think about that.
Almost every single character asks, did I reach them? Because almost every character is trying to, they want to communicate their feelings to other people.
Right.
Yeah.
And because they're normal human beings, they're
suck at it.
terrible at talking to people and communicating their feelings to other people.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's. You go ahead.
yeah, most all of them can only successfully do it when they play their music, and after they play their music or while they're playing their music, they ask, did I reach them? Am I reaching them? Can I reach them?
That's interesting. No, I think that's very interesting because that's I think I don't know. Again, I'm not a musician, so it's hard to speak to that specific medium. But
in your own medium, though.
Well, no, as like
about
this is about like it's the same with writing. Yeah, you're trying to tell somebody something. You're trying to explain. You're trying to communicate with somebody something that's hard to communicate otherwise. Whether that is the actual feeling of sadness, or you're trying to make people like come to some realization, or just think about something. Like you're trying to communicate with people. And I think that is really interesting. All the characters sitting there, after their performance or, their tutorship or mentorship or whatever, and being like, did I reach them? I think that's an interesting theme, because, it's interesting that that is a theme being communicated, or trying to be. That is the theme that is trying to be communicated through the anime. I feel like that sentence was very poorly constructed. I apologize. But
I just have something to add to that when you're done.
Please do, yeah.
So, did I reach them? Was, like you said, it was common, but also when they weren't asking, did I reach them? It was muddy. It wasn't clear. And then when they wanted to actually reach out to the audience, when they wanted something, when they needed that objective, and they were like, I want this, I want this. So then that gave them a clear line to be able to play well, to be able to connect, to be able to inspire. So all of those things came out of that happening.
Right,
and that was a clear want that caused that to happen.
Yeah.
And so I really liked how that was formulated.
No, absolutely.
There was definitely a major theme of everyone was changed by all their relationships with other people, and everyone was driven by their relationships with other people. What made them great at playing the piano was these relationships, and I think a great character that was highlighting that specifically was Emi Egawa, who was the black-haired pianist,
Red Eye,
who was like, I'm the best pianist, except I've just not done anything because Arima disappeared and he was my only motivation. And then he reappears and she's like, I'm motivated again. Time to like,
play the piano.
Play the piano. Dust myself off and play the piano.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also that's the one of the main the main character's whole shtick is he doesn't care about playing piano in a way, and the thing that really makes him care about the music is this character, that he decides he's going to play these songs. He's like, I'm going to play this song just for her, and that's when he actually plays. He does well, is when he decides he's going to play it for her. So his entire growth as a character is driven by that.
I have a question that I would like to drive the conversation in a specific direction with.
All right.
Tsubaki, the childhood friend who is in love with Arima.
Yes.
Right.
What do you guys think of her character and her relationship with Arima?
Question is, do they get together in the end?
It is implied because after Kaori dies, Arima sees Tsubaki in the street, and he says to her, "Hey, it's you," which is, I'm pretty sure, what Kaori kept saying to Arima multiple times in the story when she bumped into him. Maybe I'm mistaken on this, but I'm pretty sure she consistently said, "Hey, it's you," and it's revealed at the end that she liked Arima all along, and that she knew about him before they officially met, and that they met specifically because Kaori was like, "I want to meet Arima," and that was her big driving motivation, was to live life to the fullest and meet Arima, and that is a big part of her being like, I want to fix him before I die. And so it is kind of implied that Arima and Tsubaki would get together because I think of that line the protagonist says that is, "Hey, it's you," that mirrors what Kaori said to him so many times.
Interesting. Keeping in mind that all the characters are 14. Again, Japan.
It's legal, Jake. Japan.
Not in most provinces have passed laws that make it 18, okay? We don't talk about that. Japan's a weird place, historically. But yeah, no, I don't see why they have to be 14. Anyways. Yes, so, it is interesting. I feel like it was a thing that, I mean, it was just kind of a subtle side note in the back of the story. Like, didn't really do anything. Didn't really. I don't think I didn't see it. Maybe it does later on.
Yeah, it becomes a major point later on.
Okay, that's fair. So initially, yeah, it's not really. It's just kind of like in the background, she gets angry, which is it's always a funny thing. Like when like the character, that character likes this person, and then whenever she sees him with someone else or this and that, she just gets really angry and takes her anger out on everyone. It's funny.
Did you have thoughts, Mandy?
I feel kind of bad for her in a way, in the sense that Tsubaki, like, she's all excited to introduce her friend to him because she doesn't, she was like, oh yeah, it'll be great because we can kind of double date kind of thing. And then it doesn't turn out that way. And it's just so sad because, like, she's jealous, but she doesn't want to screw things up royally. And so she's constantly, like, battling that throughout, I feel like. And that she can't connect with him with the music. And so I think that's part of her motivation when she discourages him from doing that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I mean...
Yeah, Noah that brings up these questions. What are your thoughts?
Oh no! Oh look, place I have to be. Okay.
I don't know. Like, and I could be totally off base. It's this constant teeter-totter of, she's jealous and then she's not, and then she's jealous.
I don't know how to feel about it. Because something about it feels weird and off to me.
Right.
And I'm not sure if the story... I'm not... Like, I don't want to say that the story would be better off without that romance. I don't really know that I understand the function of the romance in the story and
in the first half, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And... Also, it does feel a little bit like everyone's falling in love with Arima, which it's partially there's a sensitivity to this because there's a harem trope that happens in anime. I'm not sure if any of you were aware where everyone falls in love with the protagonist.
What is that? I don't even. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's a thing.
And
I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you how I feel about it. I didn't feel like it affected the story in the place that I watch enough to, maybe it does later. And maybe I will finish it just because I've gotten halfway through and there's only
Just get it done.
I know. There's like 10 episodes left.
We can do it.
Well, so real quick, I want to touch on two things. The first of which is going to be hyper detailed backgrounds, and the second one is just going to be final thoughts because we have just about 6 minutes left in the show. Noah, hyper detailed backgrounds. Some of the backgrounds in this show, absolutely fabulous. A lot of detail.
I love them. There's a shot of an like an electrical pole thingamadoo with all the coils and spirals, and I'm just like, ooh, that's good. Like it makes the setting feel more vast and varied. That we don't just have these repeated dull backgrounds. We have differing backgrounds and different locations. Put a lot of time into it.
I think there were a few things in there. I definitely think there were some moments where there was some CGI. That was painted over because especially with the pianos playing, the hammers hitting the chords inside the piano. There's a couple of moments with fingers hitting keys that when they struck me as being, now again, not poorly done, but like CGI painted over. And I think that is probably one of the ways they got all of the really, really intricate backgrounds is by maybe having built the things as models, and not having to draw them a million times over and over, but they just have the model and they paint over it. Looked great. I thought that was done really, really well. Wonderful backgrounds. Yeah, also, just the art style in general. Love the faces. Love the expressiveness of the faces. Can't say a lot to weight and balance, just because generally that wasn't much of a thing. Obviously, there's some great expressive hands, great expressive faces. Everybody, like when people cry, the tears are huge. So, and when they sweat, they're literally like drenched with sweat. Lots of sweat in that show. But I enjoyed the art thoroughly.
I thought it flowed really well. I loved the detail. I loved the way that they moved. Their movement was just so beautiful and natural. Like even when she's like playing with the children in the very first episode up on the little playground thing, I just thought that was so like you just felt like it drew you in.
I thought, it was a good. I think it was a good contrast, or not a contrast, but it was a good. It worked well with the narrative of like music being this big vibrant thing, because very bright colors, so much detail in it, and I think that worked well with this idea of the music being complicated and all this like brightness and this emotion coming out of it. I think it played into I think the art supported that relatively well.
The juxtaposition of the dark like gray tones versus the vibrancy.
And I will say, I think what was oh dang, lost it. I lost it. Okay, continue. What are your thoughts?
Best girl goes to the dead cat Chelsea.
Oh yes.
Oh, I agree.
I agree with that. Yeah. Best girl is the dead cat. Dead state or live state?
Dead state.
It's grim, but I'm gonna have to allow it.
There's no waifu. I'm not willing to commit at this point.
Definitely. Well, no, I think honestly, so far, hold on. The music teacher that was friends with the mother.
Saito?
Saito? She's pretty cool. She's very supportive, although I disagree with some of the things fundamentally that happened within that relationship. She should have probably called somebody about that.
She also doesn't have a great relationship history. You might be pulling in some baggage, Jake.
What? Oh, I didn't. What is her relationship history?
She has a moment where she's with young Arima at the piano, playing and singing about how she'll kick her husband out.
I think that's hilarious. No, that.
Oh, you think it's hilarious?
Well, why don't you choose her as a waifu, man?
Yeah, you can have her if you want.
Alright, but like seriously, we all get angry at people sometimes. She's taking it on the piano, and
we all want to kick our husbands out sometime.
So cute. I thought it was cute.
All right, final thoughts. Final thoughts. Your Lion April. Good title, by the way. I like that title.
Do you know why it's titled that?
Your Lion April? I mean, do you know why it's titled that, Noah?
Because at the last episode, Kaori confesses that she knew Arima. She knew of Arima well beforehand, and so she had set up that meeting to get with Watari, specifically to meet Arima. And so the lie she told in April, which is where the show starts, was that she liked Watari.
Oh, interesting. You see, I didn't know that. I was thinking that her Lion April. I can't remember exactly what I was thinking. It was a general thing about her. Oh, something she had said to him about music.
I feel like they foreshadow a lot with this series. It's not as obvious how it's going to end as something like, there are other animes that are more obvious with how they're going to end, but they do foreshadow a lot with like the name included.
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple of different ways you could take the title. That probably is the way it was intended. I took it in a slightly different way, but not in, I don't think, necessarily a bad way. But I do like the title. It sounds good, nice and short. I love subtitles.
I like
it sounds like, well, I don't know. Never mind. Forget what I just said. I like the title. Final thoughts, Mandy.
I think that everybody should watch it. I thought it was really good. I want to finish watching it, so I still have to hold a little bit back because I haven't finished. But
true.
yeah, no, it was very well detailed, really gut wrenching at times in a great way, and beautiful. I just thought it was beautiful.
I definitely agree. So next week, we are going to be watching. What was the show we decided upon before we got on here today? Was it? I can't remember. Noah.
Was it Ancient Magus?
I think it's Ancient Magnus Bride.
All right, let's do it.
We were going to do Ancient Magnus Bride, and I think are we going to do that other one the following week?
Yuri on Ice.
Mm-hmm. Are we going to do that?
Not AKB.
Oh, wait, that's 3 seasons. So
No,
I have we will do that one. But I have a lot
It's
of
a big
work.
one.
One of my coworkers is
It's a
going on
big one.
vacation, and I'm not going to have a lot of time. So if you do want to get a little bit ahead of the game, so this next week, September the 22nd, we're going to be discussing Ancient Magnus Bride, and then the following week, Saturday the 29th, we would be discussing Yuri on Ice. So feel free to watch both of those. They're both relatively short, as I understand. And hopefully they will be fabulous and wonderful and the best anime ever. I've heard, I think, good things about both. Alrighty. Well, thanks everybody for watching. This has been an Anime Story Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Peace. Goodbye. Have a good night.